Hello, my name is a.c.atkinson.
My name is Marco Riani.
I want to talk today about a set of data that we analyze in our new and exciting book about robust statistics. These data are part of chapter 10, in which we just took some data and used all the things that we could think of to analyze them. In the earlier chapters of the book, we have tended to use data to analyze, to illustrate particular concepts and methods. These are data about loyalty. If you're running a shop or a supermarket, the customer loyalty is of great importance to you. It is, however, very difficult to know what makes customers loyal. So these are the results of a survey in which customers were asked about things like what they thought affected loyalty: price, the quality of the goods, the community outreach of the firm, the trust that the firm would pay well towards them, and customer satisfaction, and also the effect of negative publicity. We start with a y-x plot of the data, the panels of which all indicate the relationship between customer loyalty and the particular explanatory variables.
Loyalty is shown against the 6 explanatory variables.
A very important point about these data is that they're not coming from any physical mechanism, unless the human brain can be thought of as a physical mechanism. They are what people believe they are explaining how they behave. So it's not like analyzing chemical data, for example, where you might expect in the Box-Cox transformation field that you get results for the parameters which are ratios of small integers. Here, there is absolutely no constraint whatsoever, as far as we can see, on the form of what people believe.
Therefore, the relationship between loyalty, for example, negative publicity, could be highly nonlinear. Now we start with the standard regression analysis. We have that the R-square is 0.74. All the variables are highly significant.
This is quite amazing. It is not at all like the analysis of variance table you get from the analysis of social data.
Now we wanted to see whether the high significance of the t-statistics is due to the presence of particular observations and or whether we can do better. We start with the QQ plot of residuals.
What we notice is that there are too many negative residuals. See how the curve there goes outside the simulation endpoints. And in the lower panel, we make use of what is called a symmetry plot. This starting from the median, plots one observation, the observation one above the median, one below the median, against each other, and eventually get this very curved plot at the top end, where the negative residuals we have seen, the two large negative residuals, are causing the plot to be curved.
Now we move to the interactive part. There is the search, the monitoring of scale residuals, and we notice that there is a group of units. It is interesting to brush these units, to understand what is the position of these units in the y against x plot. These brushed units form a particular group, especially in the scatter of y against x6. These units are par in this
in that particular dimension.
It is also important to notice that the numbers are almost consecutive. 7, 8, 9. We have no information about the order in which the customers have been recruited.
This suggests that it would have been nice to have had such information. This is an example of lurking variables that somebody has failed to record. So we have found some really quite different observations from the rest of them. let us look at the monitoring plot of the 6 added variable t statistics to see if these observations are having a strong effect on any conclusions we might draw from the data. Here we are. We can see the effect of them at the very end, but it really is not important. In fact, the top line there for T2, the outliers just seem to be continuing pretty much the same line. Some of the other ones, the curves are flipping up or down a bit.
Right. But the effect is not so strong in such a way that they change sign and or they become non-significant.
We can see in X6. X6 is quite different, has a different trajectory from all the other T statistics. But even that one, where the outliers look so obvious in the YX plot, is not being strongly affected. Could I just ask a question? I don't know how many outlying observations we found.
28.
28. So most of them are coming in at the end of the search.
Now we check whether the data have to be transformed. We monitor now the statistics for the constructed variable. The trajectory, for example, for 0.5 stays inside, then goes out. Then there is the tendency that when the last observations enter the search, the value of the score test increases. Mm-hmm. And notice also the behavior of the trajectory associated with no transformation. Mm. Goes outside the band, then stays inside.
This is the kind of behavior which makes monitoring extremely valuable.
Now we try our automatic procedure for finding the best value of lambda. Now with our automatic procedure, this is not given in the book, and then our automatic procedure finds that the best value of lambda is 0.5.
So this is in agreement with our intuition of looking at the fan plot.
Now highlight the outliers that have been found along the different trajectories.
There being a different search for each of these transformations.
And in fact, the number of outliers that you find is different. For the trajectory for 0.5, the outliers are just those entering the final part. On the other end, for lambda is equal to 1, here you have many more outlying observations. Look for the trajectory of lambda is equal to -1. So here you have different searches, and then you have found a different number of outliers for each trajectory. Given that we have found the square root, our automatic procedure, we find the outliers in the square root scale. And this is our figure 10.29.
Which is showing 41 outliers as red circles.
You see that the outliers tend to lie in a particular portion of the space for some scatters. We continue the analysis in the square root scale.
Continue using the standard regression analysis, and we can see that these plots are like those that we saw before without any transformation, but less so.
You can see that this curved pattern is less marked as it was for the original data.
You can see the same thing in the QQ plot, although now we notice that a lot of large results lying outside the envelope. So we are solving one problem and generating another.
Now we see the monitoring plot of residuals, and then we highlighted in red the units that have been declared as outliers.
So we notice that the units declared with positive residuals that were declared as outliers are rather sort of spread out in a longish tail, whereas the negative ones are all bunched together. So if we were hoping that the Box-Cox transformation would produce symmetry, it doesn't seem to have done so.
Now we move to the non-parametric case, that is to EVAs. And we start with basic EVAs, use of EVAs without option. Notice that we did not impose a monotonicity constraint, because there is no physical reason for imposing a monotonicity constraint in the transformation of the explanatory variables.
So the plot, the left-hand figure, seems to show really that things are going quite well now. It's a nice smooth transformation. There is rather elliptical cloud of residual sequence fitted values, so we may expect that there will be some outliers above and below in that band, and of course a similar kind of thing that will then show in the transformed response against fitted value.
And it is interesting to notice how the explanatory variables have been transformed, because this gives you an idea about what is the relationship between each explanatory variable and the response. For example, with trust, it says that the outcome is positively related to trust up to a certain point. Then it goes down. Or for example, look at customer satisfaction, then it is pretty constant, then it starts going up. This means that you must reach a certain level of customer satisfaction in order to have a positive effect on customer loyalty. And in the book we have commented at great length these transformations.
The interpretation
of these transformations. Yes. Now there is the automatic model selection procedure, where we check whether the different options are needed or not. After running the automatic model selection procedure, we find that 3 options are used, and there is only one model which is found, which uses options scale, robustness, and order square. And you can see that the value of the Darwin-Watson test and the Jarque-Bera have a p-value which is very large. Therefore, it says that there is a unique model, but this model is performing well. Let us see the residuals of this model.
Yeah, this is surprisingly like surprisingly like the plots that we saw before, just using EVAs without any robustness. But now the effect of the robustness has been indeed to identify outliers lying above and below the center of the cloud. And we notice also that many of the outliers are associated with quite high values of y. In putting these plots, it's important to notice that the red dots are plotted after the blue ones. So there will be seen to be many more outliers in the plot of transformed loyalty against loyalty than in fact there really are.
The outliers are also shown in the transformed values of the explanatory variables.
And these curves are somewhat similar to those that we found using EVAs, without any robustness. There are several interesting shapes here. We've already alluded to them, and there are several pages of discussion of the interpretation of these plots in the book.
Now we have a table, our table 10.6, which compares the t-statistic in the original scale, in the square root scale, in the EVAS scale without any option, and then in the REVAS scale. We see that we go from a value of adjusted square, which goes from 0.74 to 0.78 for the square root, and then to 0.79 for EVAS, up to 0.81 for REVAS. You can see that the significance generally tends to increase, the significance of the T statistics.
Although there are there really any marked changes? Yes, the most marked change is in the regression on price. Price, when you finish up with the REVAS analysis, is much more significant as a variable than it was in the original scheme.
Now, given that before we had analyzed the QQ plot in the original scale, in the square root scale, now we want to represent the same plots to see if there was an improvement or not.
And there is an improvement. Remember, in the square root plot of the QQ plot, the QQ plot of the square root transformation, the observed values went up above the envelope at the top. Now that they are just about lying on or very slightly outside the envelope, and similarly, this bulge at the bottom has disappeared. And then if we then look at the other plot, you see that it is much more nearly straight than it was before. The residuals are clearly not quite normally distributed. There's nothing very important.
Now we give a plot of where we, to the distribution of residuals, we fit a kernel density estimator.
Left-hand panel is a fitted normal curve, and the right-hand panel is a density estimate. And you can see that they are very similar. There is a slight, very slight longer left-hand tail than you might expect in the histogram, but this is reduced. If you look in the book, it is more appreciable for 0.5 as a transformation. So we have very much moved closer to achieving approximate normality.
Now we move to figure 1036. 1036 is the monitoring of the residuals in order to understand whether we have reached a stability in the trajectories.
So these are the residuals from fitting REVAS. And you see, for example, there are no longer any bunch of outliers hanging down at the bottom of this plot, which really is now very stable and uneventful. And sometimes you want plots to be eventful, but in monitoring residual plots, this bluish band is a pleasantly uneventful.
We have reached the end of this example. Thank you for watching, and in the next video we will analyze a modified version of the customer loyalty data. Hope you have enjoyed it. See you.